Well, good morning, seniors. This is Director of Guidance, Mr. Ryan Van Kampen. Today I want to talk to you about what makes a great college. A lot of people have a lot of different opinions on what makes a great college, but today I'm going to share some of my thoughts with you. And we'll be looking at, the personal fit, the financial fit, and the academic fit to make sure that we're finding a school that's really well-rounded and is going to be a good fit for you. So before we get into what I think makes a great college, why don't we look at what other people are saying and take a look at some recent college rankings. So let's look at a couple top 10 lists and see if you can figure out what top 10 schools they are. So first up, let's take a look at these schools. University of Wisconsin-Madison, West Virginia, University of Illinois, Lehigh, Bucknell, Iowa, Mississippi, Syracuse, Tulane, and Colgate. These are all great schools with solid reputations. But for this top 10 list, we're talking about the top 10 party schools in the nation. Next up, we're looking at schools like Vanderbilt, Rice, University of Oklahoma, Tulane, William and Mary, Kansas, Colby, St. Anselm, University of Iowa, and Clemson. What could these schools be? Well, these are the top 10 happiest colleges in the country as voted on by the students who attend them. Not a bad thing to look at when you're considering colleges. Here's some names a little bit closer to home. Illinois State, Northern Illinois University, University of Illinois, North Central College, Eastern Illinois, Western Illinois, Benedictine, Bradley, Aurora University, and Wheaton College. Are these the best local colleges? Actually, these are the schools that produce the most Waubonsie Valley teachers. Stanford, Harvard, Yale, the U.S. Naval Academy, Princeton, Columbia, the Cooper Union for Advancements of Science and Art, MIT, University of Chicago, and the U.S. Military Academy. What do we think these schools are? These are the top 10 most selective schools in the U.S. Another way of saying most selective is these are the schools with the lowest acceptance rates of any college. Some of these schools have lower than a 5% acceptance rate. So we just looked at a series of top 10 lists, and each top 10 list varied based on what they were looking at. So the question is, can you really trust the rankings, or do you know what these college rankings are looking at? And when you look at college rankings, you kind of have to look at the cycle of college rankings, at least when it comes to standard lists like the best universities as defined by U.S. News. Sometimes you see that the more students that apply to a college, admissions counselors are forced to deny more students. And as they deny more students, their admission rate drops, which means their selectivity rate increases. And as their selectivity rate increases, the college rankings increase, because that's often the number one factor in these rankings lists is how selective a school is. So we see selectivity increases, which forces up the college rankings. And as the college is ranked higher, that encourages more students to apply there. And as more students apply, the admissions counselors have more to deny, the admissions rate drops, and that cycle continues. So you see that in some cases, a school can actually move up in the rankings for denying more students acceptance into their university. And personally, I don't want to base my sole college selection on the fact that I have a greater chance of being denied from that school, or that other students have a better chance of being denied from that school. I want to look at not what other people are doing, but maybe what's the best fit for me. So the question becomes, it should be about the best fit, not the best sounding name. What's the best school for you? So instead of asking, what's a good college, let's ask ourselves, what is a good college for me? And over the next couple slides, we're going to look at some different factors that you might want to consider when looking for that best university or college where you're going to spend the next 2, 4, maybe even 6 years of your life as you pursue that degree. So let's start by talking about location. You hear the old adage, location, location, location. And this is really important for colleges, not just when you're looking for a home or a business. So location matters, but why should it matter? Well, you want to ask yourself, do you want to be able to come home on weekends? Is this something that interests you? We see that 57% of freshmen attending a public 4-year university will choose to live within 50 miles of their home. And that's because for a lot of our students, family is important. And they want to be able to come home, maybe not every weekend, but for some of those important holidays. And you have to consider if you're living across the country at a school, maybe in California or Florida or New York, are you going to be able to come home and see your family as often as you would like? Or are you going to be able to come home at major holidays and at breaks in between terms? Location is also important because you have to say, where do you want to live during college? Where do you want to live after college? Are you just tired of the Midwest and want to find someplace warmer? Do you want to get out of the suburbs and maybe live in a big city, or maybe someplace a little bit more natural and out in the environment? That's important for you to ask. But also, where do you want to live after college? Oftentimes, if you get an internship in college, you might then get a job offer from that same company that you were interning with. And you have to ask yourself, do you want to live your adult life in the same city or state where you're going to college? And also, what type of work do you want to do? There are just some universities that are better suited for different types of work. If you you want to be in the film industry, maybe it doesn't make sense to go to a school that's set in a rural environment. Maybe you want to look for somewhere where there's a hotbed for media production, something on one of the coasts perhaps, or in a major city. If you want to look at business, where are the major business centers in the U.S.? What are the markets that are available to you? Maybe look for colleges in those same markets so you're setting yourself up for success with a job after college. Next, we want to talk about the size of your college because we know in college size matters. And what are we talking about there? Well, we're talking about big schools versus small schools, large public universities versus smaller universities. And it's one thing to say, I want to attend a big school or I want to attend a small school, but we want to define those terms. How big is big and how small is small when it comes to college sizes? So let's look at 2 universities that are popular amongst our students. We'll look at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, which has an enrollment of about 44,000 students, and compare that to a small private university right in our own backyards, North Central College, which is sitting at about 2,700 to 2,800 students. So if we're looking at University of Illinois and asking ourselves, how big is big? Consider this. 44,000 students is the equivalent of the entire student population of Waubonsie Valley, Metea Valley, Neuqua Valley, DeKalb, Naperville North, Naperville Central, East Aurora, West Aurora, Oswego, Oswego East, Wheaton-Warrenville South, Wheaton North, Downers Grove North, Downers Grove South, Hinsdale Central, and Hinsdale South. Compare that to the 2,800 students at North Central, and that's the equivalent of Waubonsie Valley and one of the middle schools in District 204's 8th grade class. So you can see one school has the entire student population of nearly a dozen different high schools, and the other one is looking at just maybe a little bit bigger than Waubonsie Valley. Ask yourself, is that big school too big, or is that exactly what you want to be able to meet all these new people? Or is the school too small? Do you want something bigger than Waubonsie Valley, or are you comfortable with the same student size that you have right now? When you're talking about the size of the college, you also have to look at things like class sizes. So a lot of times at those large state universities, you're going to be looking at student to faculty ratios of about 20 to 1 versus a small private university, you might only be looking at 15 to 1 or lower. And that's important if you're looking for a faculty mentor and someone who can help you with research projects, to help you with internships. Consider that. How likely are you to work directly with a faculty member? You can also look at those average class sizes. At the large universities, you might have 20 to 50 students per class. And 20% of the classes on campus, especially at the freshman level, might have 50 plus students in them, versus those average class sizes at a smaller private university would be 20 or less. You can also see that large state universities will also have their lower level classes that are led by teaching assistants or graduate assistants, versus those small private universities, you're getting the direct instruction from the faculty members. Show me the money. We know it's about finances too when you're looking at colleges, what you can afford and maybe what you're looking to make after college. So look at the cost of the college. What is the sticker price? A lot of times what you see on the websites isn't exactly what you're going to pay. So you have your sticker price, but you can also, for that, take out what you'll get in financial aid. When you're filling out those financial aid forms, you're also going to get a number called the estimated family contribution for each college. And that takes into account the financial aid, takes into account, student or parent loans, because for college, both the student and the parent can take out loans, and there's actually limits on how much you can take out. You also want to take into account some of those related expenses. What are the cost of the books, the room and board that you'll need to pay when you're in college? Also, any travel expenses that you might have going back and forth between home on the weekends if you're driving, or maybe those plane tickets if you're living a little further away. And when you put all those things together, you'll get a net price. So don't just look at the sticker price that the college advertises on their website. If you're really interested in that college, make sure you're working with the admissions reps and the financial aid office to see, after all these other things are considered, what is the actual net price of attending that college? The other really good thing to remember is if you've taken dual credit classes here at Waubonsie, or if you've taken some of those AP classes and can test out of certain subject areas, you might be able to reduce the cost of your college based on those college credits that you'll enter with as a freshman. You also want to look at, is your college tuition working for you? Consider, what is your debt at graduation? Are you going to just a stellar university, but it's costing an arm and a leg, and you're graduating with 10, 20, 50, maybe even more $1,000 in debt? And is that really going to give you a good return on your investment? If you are entering a field where you're going to have a high starting salary, it might be easy to pay off that debt. But if you're looking at a lower entry salary, you might want to consider, is graduating with a large amount of debt really worthwhile, and how fast are you going to be able to pay that back? And that return on investment really will vary by your major. You could go, two students going to Northwestern, one might say, hey, in the business field, I know I'm going to have a lot of contacts when I leave. I'm going to have a great starting salary. So that Northwestern tuition and debt upon graduation might not be a bad deal because I know I'm going to make a lot of money there. But that same tuition, if you're starting out as an educator where your starting salary is going to be much lower, it's going to be harder to pay that off. So you have to just look at, what's the return on my investment? And you can start by looking at the average alumni salary. Most colleges will have this information available either directly on their website or by contacting someone in the admissions office and asking for, what's the average alumni salary? And, some schools will even be able to break that down for you by major. So take that into account, not just what you're paying, but what you'll be making once you graduate. And college, while it's about life experience and growing through that, it's also about the academics and the experience that you'll have as you learn and grow through college. So we have to talk about the academics when deciding a good fit for you. So you need to ask yourself, am I right for this school? Look at what is your high school GPA? What are your test scores? What are the admission standards? What are the graduation standards? And how well do you fit with that? In another video, we'll talk about safety, target, and reach schools. But generally speaking, a safety school is where your high school GPA and test scores match the middle 50% of a freshman class at that university. A safety school might give you a safety school, you might be above that middle 50% that the college admits. Or if you're looking for a reach school, you might be below that 50% mark. But it's really, what are you comfortable with? Do you want to be around other people with the same academic abilities? Do you maybe want to be that big fish in that smaller pond? Or do you really want to stretch yourself and take a chance at a reach school? So look at not only those GPA and test scores, but look at the admission standards. Have you taken the right classes in high school? Have you taken enough English, math, science, social studies classes? Have you looked at their world language requirements? Do they require 2 years to get in, 3 years, 4 years? And also look at those graduation standards. You might be able to get into a college with only 2 years of a world language, but that might mean you have to take additional years once you get into college in order to graduate. So really look at your academic profile and how that compares to other students at the school. Then also ask, not only am I right for this college, but is this college right for me? Big things are looking at, do they have your major or minor? I know when I started applying to colleges, I looked at where my friends were going, and I didn't even really consider, did that school have my major? And my number one choice at the time actually didn't even have the major that I wanted to go into. And upon further consideration, I figured probably having the major and minor that I wanted was better than going to a school with my friends. So consider what you want to major in and making sure that college has it available to you. Also look at, what are the academic resources that are available to you? Do they have a library? Do they have a writing center? Do they have student supports? Do they have student advisors? Are the professors available to you? Not just looking at, are these things available, but are you going to use them? If you're going to use them, you want to make sure that they are there in place for you on day one. But if you know you're much more of an independent learner and you operate on your own, maybe these things aren't quite as important to you. It all comes back to, what are you going to use and what has made you successful up until this point? Next, we want to talk about, what are the outcomes after college? College is about the experience, but it's also about, what are you able to do afterwards with the connections that you've made and the degree you've earned. So what are the student outcomes? Start by looking at simple things like, what is the retention rate? Nationwide, we find some startling statistics that 1 in 3 students won't return to the same university for their sophomore year. It's a lot of stress to go through senior year applying to a college that you might find out you might not even continue on with for your sophomore year. So really look at, how does that school support the students once they've been accepted? And do you have a good chance of returning there for your sophomore year? Or will maybe you take a year off, or maybe transfer to a different university? The retention rate matters. So does the graduation rate, both the 4-year and the 6-year graduation rate. We see that a lot of schools have stopped advertising a 4-year graduation rate because they know very few of their students actually do that. So they advertise a 6-year graduation rate. And actually, right now, the national average is sitting around 60% of students will graduate within 6 years. If you know you're committed to getting out in 4 years, you want to find a school that will support that, and where the majority of their students also can help you get out in that 4-year time span. Consider post-graduation. Where do their alumni work? How many of their alumni are working in the field associated with their major, versus how many students are maybe employed, but employed in other areas? Or, how many of their students go on to a graduate school if you know your goal is to go into a master's or even a doctorate program? What are those graduation rates from undergraduate to either working in the field of choice or going on to a graduate school? And part of that looks at, do they have a career services center on campus? Do they have dedicated career counselors who can help you make sure that the experiences you have in college are going to be leading towards employment experiences after colleges? You know what? And here's a list of different things, college experiences that will impact your college and your future job satisfaction, as well as your well-being. Look at what are those things that are important to you. We see the top things that make a difference with future job satisfaction and well-being after college is, taking a course with a professor who makes learning exciting for you. In order to do that, you need to be with an actual professor, not just a TA. Looking at, working with professors who care about you personally. Are they going to open up their office hours to you to meet with you and make sure that you're growing in that field? You want to make sure that you're finding a mentor in college, someone who's going to encourage you to pursue your personal goals and maybe has the experience to help you get there. Are you able to work on a project across several semesters, whether that's an independent study or maybe an internship, something that you're really invested in beyond just the single term? Which brings us to participating in an internship that lets you take what you're learning in the classroom and apply it to the real world and maybe even be paid for it at the same time. You also want to consider, are you active in extracurricular activities? We know that the learning doesn't happen just in the classroom, but it happens as you're doing life with other people on campus. We find that only 3% of students in college are able to experience all 6 of these factors. So you want to say, if you want a statistical chance of being the most successful after college, how can you find a college that will have as many of those 6 characteristics as possible? And what would college be without talking about college life and the personal fit, how you're going to get it involved on campus? So you want to know, what kind of student involvement do you want to have? Do you want to go to college with friends who you already know from high school? Do you want to be able to have a wide pool of people to make new friends with on campus? Are you interested in a sorority or a fraternity? Are you interested in that Greek life? Is that something that's important to you or your family? Also look at, are you interested in joining clubs, activities, or maybe even participating in sports in college? If so, do your research ahead of time and make sure that the schools have these things available to you. Look at the campus culture. What experience do you want there? Do you want to be the big fish in the little pond? Do you want to be that top dog, or are you maybe looking to be a little fish in that big pond of lots of experiences there? Both have their advantages and disadvantages, and it will be, what are you most comfortable with? What were you most comfortable with in high school, and do you want that same type of experience, or do you want to branch out and try something new? You want to find the personality and the feel of that campus. Just like people and students have personalities, so do college campuses. And that's something that you really get a good sense of if you're able to walk onto that college campus. And if you're not able to walk onto that college campus, talk to students who go there. Meet with the admissions reps. Meet with some professors. You'll get a good sense for that campus community and the personality by talking to people who go there right now. You also want to look at, what demographics are important to you, whether that's looking at the male-female ratio, whether there's people who look like you there, if that's something that makes you more comfortable. Look at the religious beliefs of that campus. Do you want to go to a school that is religiously affiliated, or do you just want to go to a public university? What is important to you? What is the political climate there? Does the college lean to the left or the right? Does that align with what you are interested in? Or are you interested in going to a campus that maybe will challenge your belief system there? So all of these things are things to consider, not because they're important to me, but maybe because they're important to you as a student. And if they're not important, just take them off your list. So we've talked about a lot of different things. We've looked at a lot of different factors. But ultimately, what is a good college? Isn't that what we all want to know? And I wish I could tell you. I wish I could say this is the one thing that says this is a fantastic college. But really, what makes a good college depends. It really does. So if it's going to depend, why don't you make it depend on you and what's important to you? So, what can you do now that you have some of this information and you have some things that you're thinking about? Well, here's some important dates that we would like you to consider. First, throughout the month of September, we're going to be offering senior Q&A sessions, kind of in those virtual blocks before your classes start, in the advertised lunch break, and after school. We'll be posting that on social media as well as through the event section of School Links. So we'll be posting that information. We'll be also sending some emails once those Q&A sessions with your counselors have been scheduled. Next event will be on September 17th. We have our financial aid night. If you're still concerned about paying for college, this is going to be a great event for you to virtually participate in, as we have experts from the Illinois Student Assistance Commission come to Waubonsie, obviously in a virtual setting, and offer that insight and information to you. Then throughout the months of September and October, your counselors will be reaching out to you to talk about individual college meetings and help you with those applications and where you want to go in the future. On October 1st, the FAFSA will open. This is the earliest you can start working on that free application for federal student aid. So start gathering that tax information from this year and get ready to input that into the FAFSA. Then on October 20th, if you have any questions, we're going to be offering a virtual FAFSA breakout session where you can bring your tax information and we'll help you line by line fill out that application for federal student aid. November 1st is our first major deadline for early admissions if you're looking at applying for early admissions. But that November 1st shouldn't be your target. You need to actually backdate that to mid-October in order to request transcripts and letters of rec and make sure that your counselors and teachers have enough time to fill that out for you and get everything submitted by November 1st. Then in January of 2021, we'll start posting our green and gold scholarships so you can start obtaining some local funding for your colleges. You should also start doing your research. Our new application, School Links, is really a great spot to start. Use it. Let it be your friend as you're looking up colleges and doing some virtual visits. Take those virtual college visits. See what a campus looks like of a big school and of a small school. Call some of your favorites and set up a time to meet with a professor, some students, or the admissions counselors. And then also throughout September and October, the IACAC, which is the Illinois Association of College Admissions Counselors, is going to be offering some seminars, and we'll post some of that information to the student splash page as well for you to sign up and maybe get some more targeted experience on some college topics. And obviously, meet with your counselors this fall. Your counselors will be reaching out to you, but you can also reach out to them if you want to be moved up on that list or if you have questions that you want answered immediately. So really dive into some of these resources. Get ready to ask for those letters of recommendation. It's important for you to identify 2 to 3 trusted adults to ask for letters. One of these should be your counselor here at Waubonsie because they'll be filling that out for the majority of your applications anyways. But also look for a teacher, a coach, a club sponsor, a community member, someone who knows you both in an academic setting and in a personal or a character setting and can speak to that. Print out a student profile and start filling that out. The student profile can be found on the counseling department website. You can also start filling out your student profile in School Links, which would allow you to share that information electronically with counselors and staff here at Waubonsie. And when you're asking for those letters of recommendation, do so in a personable way. Don't just send a quick email, but maybe make a phone call or initiate a Zoom with a teacher, or maybe send a little bit more formal of an email when you ask those teachers for the letters of rec in this remote setting. Then, of course, you need to start your applications. You can do this by visiting individual college websites, starting an application on the Common App or even the Coalition app. and you can ask your counselor for an unofficial transcript, or you can print one of these unofficial transcripts from Student View. So as you're filling out the application, you know exactly what colleges are going to be seen when your counselor sends your official transcript along with the rest of your application. Commit to applying for scholarships. There are literally thousands of scholarships that are available to seniors each year. And believe it or not, scholarships go unclaimed. Really, they do. We have personal green and gold scholarships here at Waubonsie that some years we might only have 1 or 2 students apply for. Last year, we had one scholarship that no one applied for, and we had to reopen the pool and contact specific students for that. So take advantage of all the scholarships that are out there. And keep in mind that it's not always that top student who wins the scholarship, but maybe the ones who put the most work into finding them and writing those essays to answer the questions. Sometimes it's just about following through and being consistent with applying for the college scholarships. So what makes a great college? I think you have a lot of things to help you answer that question now. I can't tell you what makes a great college. I can only tell you things that maybe would be good for you to think about. So if you have more questions, we want to make sure that you reach out to your school counselor here at Waubonsie. Reach out to me as the director of guidance. Reach out to our administrators. Reach out to your deans, to your teachers. We're all here to support you, seniors, and we want what's best for you, not only here at Waubonsie, but in the future as well.